Hey everybody, it's Chris Sovey with HealthyConsumer.com, and we're going to discuss how to make probiotics at home. This is just one of many approaches that you can take. Of course, there is the traditional sauerkraut route. Actually, what we're going to be doing today is making fermented carrot juice. It's a sour beverage that has a lot of healing properties, especially with the gut. Carrots have been used in all kinds of applications in the cosmetic industry and have been known in the literature as well to have a lot of healing properties. So we're going to discuss how to make fermented carrot juice at home from a gut healing perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and get all the supplies ready here, and then we'll go ahead and look at that. Okay, so initially looking at everything that I've got here, it might look a little overwhelming. Of course, as we're going along here, I'll discuss some alternatives. One of the easiest ways, if you really want to get started on healing up your gut, would be to go the sauerkraut route. As I had mentioned, it's really easy. You can find a lot of resources out there. The most important thing to think about when you're getting into fermentation from a healing perspective would be creating a completely anaerobic environment. There's a lot of people that do fermentations in a semi-closed environment, such as a mason jar, which is not totally anaerobic. It allows oxygen into the system, which promotes the growth of other bacteria and organisms, yeast, etc., that may get in the way of a clean fermentation that is strictly lactic acid bacteria, which is what we want when we're trying to heal the gut. So that's why a lot of people recommend the anaerobic route, and I totally agree with that approach. So we're going to discuss today fermented carrot juice, as I'd mentioned, and let me just introduce you to a couple things here real quick. So I have two different fermenting vessels here. They look really similar. This is the picklet, which it's a fermentation vessel, anaerobic, that has an airlock on the top. The airlock's actually inside here. I haven't got it out yet, which is one of the ones we'll use today. And it's basically a Fido jar, spelled F-I-D-O, like Fido. And then they've just introduced the airlock, which helps to let out the carbon dioxide without building up the pressure. And so similarly, the other vessel would be just the basic Fido jar. Now, really, essentially the only difference between these would be the airlock there. Although I've tried and I've successfully made sauerkraut in just a Fido jar, there was some concerns that it may explode actually because of the built-up pressure. But it seems to kind of, around the gasket here, it seems to kind of self-burp itself, I guess, and so it lets out the carbon dioxide on its own without exploding. So that's a good thing. So that's a cheaper alternative. The picklets are a little more expensive. But yeah, I think it's worth it, especially if you're spending month after month a lot on probiotics and you're looking for a cheaper alternative. Of course, the commercial probiotics aren't a bad way to go because of their convenience, but the other factor to consider with making your own probiotics at home is you're not just having a couple individual strains, it's promoting a whole ecosystem of not just the bacteria but also enzymes and other phytonutrients that are extracted from the plants of whatever you're fermenting, whether it be carrots, whether it be cabbage, or whatever. The water acts as a solvent, and along with the salt, and they work together to kind of pull out all the nutrients and everything that would be beneficial from those plants and brings it out into the juice. So you drink the juice and you get all the benefits of it without having to use your digestive system or strain it in any way. So these are the basic materials that I've got here for this process. Sauerkraut juice is a little more simple, but I do like the carrot juice for many of the healing properties. So we've got carrots here over on the right. You can't see I have water here. I'm particularly using distilled water because I know it's clean. I've got out all impurities. If you have access to a good spring or well water, that's probably good. I wouldn't recommend just using straight up tap water because you have the problems of chlorine and fluoride and other things that might kill off bacteria. So never use tap water when you're doing a fermentation of any sort. I also have pink salt here. You could use other types of salt. Usually sea salt of some type is recommended in a fermentation because it's not artificially made, and then also it has trace amounts of minerals, which can help with the fermentation, assist with the fermentation process as well. And then I have my food processor here because I'm going to try and expose a lot of the surface area of the carrots, and by doing that, it allows the lactic acid bacteria to get in there and do its work and start the fermentation. And then also I have a vegetable culture starter, which I'll show you in a minute here. I forgot to get that out, but get that out, and then we have measuring spoons and things like that. So let's go ahead and get started on that process, and we'll see what we can come up with here. Here's the starter culture that I forgot to get out here. This is Caldwell's. It comes highly recommended by a bunch of different sources, and so I've kind of settled on this one for now, and so I'm trying that out. I've had several successful batches of the fermented carrot juice, and then the sauerkraut as well. So that's what we got, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So we're just coarsely chopping the carrots here so we can fit those into the food processor. And once these are coarsely chopped as well, I'm going to transfer them into a bowl, and then I'm going to put in the S-blade in there so I can chop them up even further into a little pulp, which is what we want. So that's the next step here. Now I'm going to transfer this into the large bowl. I'll put it in the S-blade real quick. So that way we can get a nice pulp out of the carrot. If you don't have a food processor, I suppose there's other ways that you could do it, and you probably wouldn't even need to chop it up but this just kind of helps speed the fermentation along, so make it more efficient. So as we're going through this, if you're kind of thinking that, man, this seems like a lot of work for something so simple, it's really not that bad. And then on top of that, you think about how much money you save in the long run. I just purchased, all I need for this is organic carrots, some salt, some good quality water, and then the starter culture really isn't even necessary because fermentation will occur without a starter culture like that. It just kind of helps. It's kind of like an insurance policy. It helps to make sure that other things aren't introduced into the whole mix there. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this go. I'm gonna have to probably do this in 2 batches here. Now the key here is not to, you don't want to let it just continuously go, because then you'll heat up the carrots from friction, and then it'll, and by doing that it will create heat and ruin some of the benefits of the raw carrots. So I'm just going to pulse it. So as you can see here, we've got a nice carrot pulp there. I'm going to set this aside in a bowl here while I finish the rest of that up. I'm making a large batch here actually, so the recipe is about 4 cups of carrots to 4 cups of water, and then 12 grams of salt. So that I actually use a little scale to measure out, because each salt is going to be a different weight. So I'm gonna get the rest of this carrot going here. So when I was talking about getting the exact measurement of salt so you can make a 2% brine for the carrots here, we're going to add, for this recipe, 12 grams of salt. So I can get these little scales are cheap on Amazon, or let's see, we're at about 10 there. That's good, because I should have enough for about 12, a little over 12. Something to mention when you're doing fermentation stuff, you want to try and be clean, nice and clean. You want to wash your hands, and I actually previously sterilized the jars that I'm using by putting them in the oven at 225 for 25 minutes. And then from that, then that should kill off pretty much all organisms for the most part. We're not doing surgery here, but you know, it just kind of helps to eliminate other variables. So we've got our 12 grams of salt here. So we're going to go ahead and load up these jars with 4 cups of the shredded carrots. Just using a little funnel here on top just to kind of help me so I don't make as big of a mess. Three cups and 4 cups. Now, by my original estimates, I guess we're going to have quite a bit of extra carrot pulp here, but that's okay. Find other uses for it. So I still got to do 4 cups for the other batch here, but and then we're going to add an equal portion of water here. Oh my gosh, this thing's heavy. So now that we have that filled up here, I'm going to go ahead and add our 12 grams of salt. And then we've got our starter culture here. So for this, I'm going to use about 1/8 of a teaspoon. And when you're done with something like this, if you have like those little Ziploc vacuum seal, or if you have a way to vacuum seal it, you can save these for other fermentation, which is good because you've got more than enough for if you're doing small ferments like this. So I've got 1/8 or a dash, 1/8 of a teaspoon of the starter culture, just the bacteria. I'm going to put that away in a sealed, vacuum sealed Ziploc bag. And now that we have that all done, I'm just going to go ahead and stir it up just a little bit here, just to kind of let everything kind of come together. In most of the fermentations, a lot of people will recommend making sure you have some kind of weight in here to sink the solids below the level of the brine, which is a great idea. I've found that this vessel is, in my experience, is so effective that it's not even necessary. I haven't noticed, except for one batch that was contaminated, I haven't noticed any molds or anything growing on the top of sauerkraut. And in fact, I have one going right now in one of these picklet vessels that is growing just fine. And so my point is that in most cases, without an efficient vessel, so something like this, like a picklet or a Fido jar, you would need to have some kind of weight to press down the solids below the level of the brine in order to avoid the formation of unwanted bacteria and other organisms. So, because what we want is the lactic acid bacteria in here. We want that, and we don't want to contaminate it. So, definitely something to consider. So far, I've been able to successfully make really good fermented carrot juice in terms of, you know, the purity of it. I do want to get it tested sometime and kind of look at the bacteria itself and see. So I've sealed this, and now I'm going to put in the airlock here. So this little airlock, let's see, now you can see most of it anyways. It creates a water barrier here, and then I'm gonna place some water right in there, and it will help to seal off this whole vessel. So I'm gonna do that. And if you look closely, you could see that inner chamber there floating up, so we're kind of sealing everything off. And that's the process. That's it. Now we have, I'll let this sit out on the counter for at least, or in a room that's below 76 degrees for sure, but preferably less than that even. A better fermentation temperature is anywhere between 64 to 72 degrees at the most. But and then after that, after 3 to 5 days, a lot of times they recommend that you put it in the fridge after that, or you can continue to let it ferment. So that's the whole process. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below or contact me. I hope you enjoy this, and in the future I'll probably be doing more videos on things such as making other types of homemade probiotics such as sauerkraut. So I hope you have a wonderful day.